7:30, which means it's time for us to delve into newspaper headlines in detailed analysis. And to help us with our analysis this morning, we have got Ugo Dre of Ugo Dre covering it. And we've got, last but certainly not least, Funmi Odude looking ravishing in red. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Folu. Thank you.
Great to have you here. All right, now as we delve into the stories, please remember that we're streaming on YouTube, so hello to everyone out in the live stream world. Of course, send us your messages and comments, not just through the live stream platform, but on Twitter using the hashtag FreshlyPressed981 and by sending us messages to our WhatsApp number, which is 0809 444 0981.
This morning we'll start with Punch newspaper. The story up there from Punch newspaper: Niger Delta militants to resume hostilities over IOCs' refusal to relocate headquarters. So the coalition of the Niger Delta agitators Wednesday, that was yesterday, announced that it was going to return to the creeks by December, giving the international oil companies December 2018 as the deadline to return to the Niger Delta and start operations. And named a few other factors or a few other issues that they are not happy about, including the recent invasion of Edwin Clark's house. They also mentioned some other areas. When we look at the story, Ugo, we know back in 2017, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, had directed the Minister of State for Petroleum to actually look into the issue of the international oil companies and just address them to make sure they get back. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, excuse me. My take is when they sneeze in the creeks, Nigeria catches colds. If there's anything that if you're in this country, whether you're a businessman or an employee, so is what happens down south in the creeks. So once these boys come out and start to blow up, bet water at most to fall into a recession. Yeah. So I think the government knows this. Like, this is serious. This is one threat they don't take lightly. So what has happened here is a few days ago we learned relocating their head office, which is.
But they all not
usually anytime they want to do, like Labour today.
Yes.
If Labour wants to go on strike, they always talk about that salary review. It's always in the list. They have this bucket. People's houses, guys that they are afraid of them.
Alleging a plot of assassination
exactly.
of framework.
Exactly. So, but the Inspector General of Police, I think, Ibrahim Idris, came up yesterday to like
in fact,
also
there's a developing
they sent a whole delegation to apologize.
Exactly. If I understand order, is it a set where they're going to arrest the person who I'm like, so how police go to the Clark's house just arrest, like,
we'll find out.
So
I mean, this is Edwin Clark. No ordinary person.
Exactly.
People get to Edwin
somebody
Clark
has to
is.
go to your house.
Yes.
So like I said, I mean, I guess somebody in Asoro is like, are you people okay?
As in,
do you realize that there's an election coming in? Like,
anyway, we'll find out, an interesting twist to that story, the Edwin Clark story, and move along on Freshly Pressed 981, which you're listening to right now. Remember to send us your message with that hashtag Freshly Pressed on Twitter. Vanguard newspaper has this next one: Newport Access Road to cost 72 billion naira. So the federal government has approved the reconstruction of the port access roads running from Apapa Port to the Old Gate in Ketu areas of Lagos.
We sign an agreement. Let's see how much we can push. So she says she's speaking to Dangote and the Minister for Works. I say, please wait till there's an agreement. The history of PPPs, where they have been tightly sealed agreements in this country, is not even encouraging. Not to talk of when there's not. So please, let's not rush. Let's wait. And like I said, there are no details.
Yes,
a
because
PPP is not something that you just
start.
Like that.
You have to carry out investigations to see.
And apart from the due diligence and investigations part, I mean, under the PPP, there has to be, what kind of PPP is it? How does the constructing company recover its funds back?
Yes.
Is it a build, operate, transfer? What kind of PPP it is? So the story is a bit sketchy regarding that. But the second part of the story that is also important is that she speaks about a loan that the MP is getting from the...
And that approval means that whenever there's going to be an allocation to that parastatal of a ministry or whoever it is, whichever government arm is borrowing that money, they would have to take out the loan portion.
Meant to enhance the control of the cost at the end of the day. With this, how does it? Is that an improvement that we've noticed ever since this BIP, was put into place?
High sugar consuming nation, we consume a lot of sugar. I think in sugar by 2021. So that was this backward. I was reading that sugar has been on this
But my question
since
is,
2000.
But he can't do it
my,
alone.
but my question is also that if we don't start investing one day, we're not going to get the results at the end of the day.
Yes.
So we've got to start. Yes, it might be expensive, but the government needs to put money into it. You've
That's
just
why you
said
have the sugar
we need
master
more.
plan.
Yeah.
We need more sugarcane plantations.
Yeah.
Everybody's going into other types of farming. I don't understand.
Thank you very much. Let's move on very quickly to this next story from New Telegraph. Federal government earmarks 6.07 trillion naira for the National Health Plan. The federal government, according to its report yesterday, approved the 6 billion naira for the funding of the National Health Strategic Plan 2. The new comprehensive plan says to cover 6 states of the Federation of Federal Territory and designed for implementation between 2018 and anticipated outcomes of this plan includes provision of healthy or promotion of healthy food consumption. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, we heard this report from Katsina State for the stomach flu, the gastroenteritis as ravaging that area. I mean, this, I would say, would be a good move, don't you think?
Well, look, we need a national health plan in Nigeria. And what I don't understand, maybe because my understanding of it is quite different, is when you read this report, it's something that they're going to be doing for 5 years. So it's more a fix rather than a policy. Does that make sense? So it's a project rather than a policy. So the government up in trillion, all right? They're looking at eradicating cholera, enabling environment for attainment of health sector, increased utilization of essential packages of healthcare services, strengthening our healthcare and protection from health emergencies, as well as health financing, and of course reducing the maternal mortality rate. All of that is wonderful. What I don't get is, so in this same story, they talk about how the previous one didn't achieve so the previous one lasted from 2010 to 2015 and 80% of its target. Now, we've got to ask us, or at least what I ask myself is, so you're just going to be doing this. What happens after 5 years, right? First of all, we know the one thing we do know is that just like the people of Nigeria, our health sector needs a lot of investment. And it can't just be once, it's continuous investment. Because again, there are so many things that need to be fixed in there. You just can't, you can't just say we're doing this for 6.7 for 5 years and that's going to fix things. Because guess what? Things fall apart as you move, etc. That's number one. Number two is what excites me about this is that they're also investing in human resources. What sort of human resources is that? 34% of medicines. I want to know how they're going to invest. So are you going to increase training that you're giving doctors? Are you going to increase their salary? Because in order to give, you're going to give them better housing allowance. Again, in fancy spanking hospitals, if you are not treating your doctors right, otherwise it just falls apart. As it was the name of that governor that nobody is using, I forgot, Anambra or somewhere. As we all, so this is exciting, and it gives me a bit of worry because I would rather we just had a national health system, full stop, where you register, where our taxes are put into. It's a continuous thing, and of course, yes, they actually didn't work alone. This is what happens when federal works together. They worked with every single state, told them all to go off, do your own plan, come back. We'll put all the plans together. This is why this is so holistic and it's very strong. So
okay, we are running out of time, so let's quickly race through this. MI from Akoka very quickly says, yes, there are legitimate grievances, and these oil companies aren't exactly saints, but going the route of hostility and violence, it does no good. The government should step up to the occasion, because if oil production is compromised at this point, it's economic deja vu, i.e., technical recession. Henry Manuel says this violent rhetoric is the key reason why almost all the IOCs are removing all their top employees from the South. It's also the reason why my family moved to Lagos years ago. Almost all the families I grew up with are now in Lagos. Now, do they know how much payee these states are losing? If I say violence is not a solution, they will say this is Nigeria. Anyways, speaking of anyways and violence not being a solution, so the informant that was responsible for the raid on Edwin Clark's house, on Pa Clark's house, let's call it Pa, because at this point that's really what we're at, elder statesman, he blames taxi driver. So the informant is blaming his informant. That's this story. So listen, I was in a there was a commotion up front. I was covering arms and going into it, and it was like, police said, report anything suspicious. So rightfully, he said, I went to the police and I told them this, but the police just then acted on the information without doing any due diligence, and therein is the problem. What are your thoughts?
That is the problem. The problem of this entire story is due process. That is the problem. Okay, so let me first of all deal with the fact that in order to save face and everything, a lot of people are going down, including the suspect himself.
Yes.
Which is tough for the whistleblower movement.
So they said he is going to be charged to court for providing false information and misleading the force, which I think is actually going to derogate a lot of reports. Because as far as we know, both the informant and even the policemen that refused to follow due process did not know the owner of the house.
Exactly. So
and maybe if they had, they would have exercised more caution. So what happened was this guy was in a taxi and he says a road was blocked. And he was asking a taxi man, why is this road blocked? I said, this is the Niger Delta people's house. So see that truck entering that compound, it has arms in it. and he reported to the police. The policemen too that carried out the raid, they are facing queries. They're going to have disciplinary action against them and all of that. First things first, I don't think, unless they can show that the report had malice involved or bad faith, I don't think they should do anything to this. Because the truth of the matter is, it is not me and Miss Ireti has the capacity to be bringing arms and ammunition. It will still be one of these big men that we will have to report at the end of the day. So while it's sad that it's an elder statesman that we all respected that this happened to. The truth of the matter is, if there had been due process, there would be no need to apologize. If a search warrant had been properly pursued and gotten, if the search was done with decency and not the usual raid the way policemen come to, it would have been absolutely, yes, we didn't find anything. At the end of the day, we will carry our whatever and go in shame. But if due process had been
well, maybe a couple of questions, but you also mentioned something just now when you said if it'd been done in a respectful way. Do you think perhaps even if the due process hadn't been followed to the extent of, how credible is this report, if perhaps it even recorded the process of them raiding and saying why we're searching, we received information, would that have made a difference?
I don't know. This is Nigeria pride, very disrespectful that you can't even come near me. Okay. How dare you even come near me? And this issue about denial and everything, I'm sorry, but I don't think the IG can know of every arrest and every sexual that has been executed before it is done in Nigeria. So let's go back and train our policemen.
Okay. Thank you very much. A few minutes left. Let's keep it racing. ThisDay newspaper: police deploy technology to check illegal detention by SARS. Essentially, what has happened is in the reformation of the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad, they are saying that they want to deploy the use of a device that will be configured to alert relevant officers, first of all, once a suspect is detained, and secondly, if that detention exceeds the permitted 48 hours. They are trying to remodel and also introducing training and retraining more regularly. What are your thoughts on this, Ms. Ireti?
Right, so I'll tell you what my thoughts are. SARS, what's his name? I lost my paper.
Inspector General of Police, Mr. Ibrahim.
Yes, there we go. This is what's important in this story. He repeats over and over again that, where's the part that I highlighted? He said, I repeat, it is illegal for SARS operators to stop a vehicle without beginning to check on laptops. That will not happen. Now, they are now employing some sort of fancy thing to detect illegal detention. What this story doesn't tell you is how that is going to detect illegal detention. It's called custody management system. I don't know what that is going to be attached to me, attached to the SARS that's going to try and abuse me or what. I have no idea. But we do know that the VP asked for it to be, reformed. they're clearly putting in an effort to reform it. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into this story properly, so I can only advise you all to go and read it. Am I excited? I don't know.
Cautious.
Yes, cautious optimism. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Ireti. I appreciate it. We'll see how this works in practice. Up next, EFCC are speaking out, and there's a favorite story: corrupt and defecting politicians. That's what the acting chairman of the EFCC. You're right, he is still an acting chairman, which I find brilliant. Coming to the end of this 10. I'm not the type that you say that will be all inclusive and will serve as a coordinator through the developer can interface with the residents of the mall, as well as squatters who are actually on the site, interestingly enough. They're having meetings with the squatters, which is that, okay, may not be, but in this situation, we're seeing that they are trying to communicate and saying, let's figure out a way that we can relocate everyone relatively.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because sometimes I wonder if we're still practicing the same legal system as the UK and if we still have the same sort of law book, if you like, because possession is 9/10 of the law, no? Yes, exactly.
You shouldn't really just kick them off.
You can't just kick somebody off. But this is why I like the fact that they're working with squatters, because God help you. Many multi-million pound houses in the UK have been occupied by squatters, and it's taken years.
Yeah,
Google has even got there yet. But it's called of Agbado, Keodo, local council area suburb. Yeah, that's what they said. I never heard of it, but anyway, never mind. That's the end of Computer Village for me. But hey, it's not going to be called Computer Village anymore. What is it going to be called? Katangoa Computer.
No, it'll be Computer Village.
In Katangoa.
Phase 2.
Yeah, so anyway, this is good news. I think one of the things that I think obviously the place was getting quite small.
It is very
for the
small,
traders, yes, and they're working in conjunction with the community, the new community, and I suspect the old community of actually getting fed up, the residents, etc., and it causes a lot of congestion. But we mustn't underestimate the power of Computer Village. Every time I marvel at that place and how it became and how. And it's not from government and it's not from the state, it's the people that did this. And this is one, I actually think this market needs to get an award because it's just been super. So I'm glad to see that they're treating them properly.
Thank you very much for that. That's why they're organizing themselves into a great future. And let's keep it moving. The final story, Ugo Dre. Buhari gets China's support of a 3,050 megawatt Mambila hydro power project. Earlier we spoke a little bit about what's been going on in China with the president and other African nations really having a conversation here. He and Xi Jinping of China had a little sideline chat, which just emphasizes the closeness, with these guys. He really is. But what are your thoughts on this project and the support that China's meant to be giving us and the concerns that the average Nigerian has, especially based on the way the press is relating the story as to how perhaps indebted we might be becoming to China?
Interesting thing is that these days, whatever gets into the news, there seems to be a lot more attention to the negative side of things. I don't know why. I think we're just
it's more exciting.
Hysteria. Yeah.
There's what did you call it? Buhari porn? What is it? Revenge? No, it's not. It's not even revenge. I don't know how to explain that. But carry on.
So yeah. So the government wants China to fund the Mambila hydropower project, just the same way it's gotten China to fund rail projects and all sorts of things. So China is expanding massively into Africa. I think I mentioned that on Business Express earlier. So it's not a big deal. I mean, we are Africa, so we'd always go cap in hand begging. All sorts of things, right? So it's either you're
Good, it's not a big deal.
so it's either you're begging them to give you
But
money.
it's good.
Or,
My grandchildren will speak Chinese.
Well, you know what, for me, the thing is that it's nothing new, like I said earlier. It's what has always happened in the 70s. So it's either you're getting funding from the West, from Europe, or from the US, or which through the World Bank or IFC, or you're getting funding from Asia, China. So, and attached. So if it's coming from the West, they are telling you that you have to have some kind of market reforms, and also the people who are typically against Chinese funding is that they feel like with Western funding, it comes with market reforms. It means the government has to be a bit more responsible and all that. But with Chinese funds, they usually don't give you all those strings. They just carry the cash and don't give it to you at 2% interest rate. However, they also have Chinese companies basically. But the downside of Chinese funding is that a lot of times, and even from businesses who have imports from China. So if you have a service deal with the Chinese companies, it's actually very cheap at the outset. But when you now want to start to replace parts, for example, the roads that are built, the rails, when you now want to replace or repair those rails, you're going to be buying it at probably 3 times the cost. So that's the catch for them, yeah. So 2% interest rate cheap, yeah, but the catch is that things are going to be more expensive. But nevertheless, for me, please, just bring the development. No problem.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we're done. We're freshly pressed for this morning.
And thanks to everyone who sent in messages on YouTube and WhatsApp. We see every one of you. We appreciate you.
Unfortunately, we've got special guests in to make sure you keep it.
Wait, visit carsv5.com today.
We squeeze it in.
Or trade in your car for another.
Only the what's it? Your messages of it.
What's wrong with Chinese name?
What's wrong with?
That's a lot of people on social media. What are your options? Like I asked them, I'm like, when I saw that Obi stop, I was like,
What? Oh, guys, we're still recording. Carry on.
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So when I saw it, I'm like, look, what do you expect? What's your alternative really?
And
Do you
why are
understand?
we
Like-
afraid? Why are we more afraid of the Chinese than we were of the
Hey,
in the world?
so what's the
Because
problem?
America
I don't think
dominated
it's that
the
we're
world.
more afraid. I think first of all, our
We're
Freedom of
skeptical.
Information Act is in action, so
Right.
we're in that information overload space
Yeah.
where we're actually
Give
just
us all the
getting info,
details,
right?
Yeah.
And people don't know what to do
Right.
with the
No, I
information.
think Folu's right.
Also,
That's the problem.
The
It's
press
the
are very easily
information is
swayed and are very
overwhelming.
easily
Not-
paid to
and
tell
guess what?
versions
And
of
influencers
stories.
as well.
Of course.
They're also
But
getting
then-
easily.
But let me also
easily-
ask, Ugo,
So-
shouldn't we also look at making sure when we are borrowing and stuff that we don't have one person that is dominant over us, so that we become a weaker party in negotiating, even in
Let me tell you,
In any kind
Let me-
of,
let
in
me
any
tell you
kind,
for me,
one person in
forget
one
the-
party
forget the-
in a relationship
private
like that.
sector businesses are actually taking on more loans from China
Yeah.
than from anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And you
And they
look at
have
your
been for
telecoms
years.
industry, telecoms, your utilities,
Yeah.
They
telecoms,
have been
power,
for years.
Chinese
Yeah.
Because
companies
I've
that
been
are
looking
really
at this
dominating.
contract for a
True.
while.
Very true.
True Huawei
Very
or
true.
any of
Huawei.
these guys. That's
Yes,
and
very
what are they
Because they were
doing?
the only ones that
Their
willing to
strategy
offer.
is just
ZTE.
very cheap.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
give it cheap,
very
so
cheap.
their alternative is cheaper than maybe what you
Yes,
have in
they are.
Europe. So
They're the only
instead
ones
of
that are
giving you-
willing. The only
Yes,
issue is they're sending in
Siemens.
their workers with you.
Yeah.
And my problem is because I looked at it, even when I was in uni, I was looking at these contracts. So I agreed with friends of mine whose parents were doing these businesses. They were like, oh, this one was. I said, listen, tell them that don't allow them to bring in 99% or
That was
absolutely
what the
have to.
local content
Then
act was
put
supposed
in
to
fix.
yes.
Yeah.
Then
That
if you're
was what
going
it
to
was
do that,
supposed to
put in
fix.
clauses that mean that they have to train somebody right under them to move out.
60-40.
Oh,
It's basically economic diplomacy. I mean, like
Yes.
it's been around the world for
Yeah.
years. So the problem is that Africa, why do you always have to run
Go
cap in hand to
begging, yeah.
beg
Yeah.
all the time? Is it that you're begging the Americans or the Europeans
Yeah.
or the Chinese
Yeah.
or the Brazilians?
And
You're just
unfortunately,
always
the
begging.
Can I
system is
just,
already
can I
entrenched.
What's
just,
the
we're not
big
in,
job?
we are not